Tony's Topics. What's happening, folks? My name's Tony. Welcome to Tony's Topics and the 100th episode. Woo! Okay, so what do I want to talk about today? I was thinking, wow, the 100th episode needs to be something special, right? Like, should I talk about some current event that's going on? Although recently there hasn't been too much bad stuff going on in the news. Yay! That's wonderful. You know, it's sad to hear about tragedy, about some unarmed minority getting shot, or some crazy ISIS Boko Haram garbage where they go and blow up some building, even though that I think that actually still happened, sadly enough. There were some gunmen or something like that. But either way it goes, for the most part, the news has been kind of calmer than it has been recently in recent months. So, I guess I'm going to talk about what I first started talking about at the very first episode, the NBA. So let's talk about some basketball, right? Okay, and I guess at the end of this clip, I'm going to call my picks and stuff. It'll pretty much be obvious who I'm going to pick in each matchup tonight. And somebody's like, well, some of the games have already started. Well, it doesn't matter because I still would have probably made these picks anyway. And you know what? I'll still make the picks anyway. I don't give a care who's up. So anyway, alrighty then. So what I want to talk about first off, let's call who's going to win. No, let's call the Final Four of the playoffs. That's what we'll do. We'll call the Final Four of the playoffs. It's still too early to call who's going to win it all. So let's call the Final Four. Okay, in the East, let's start in the East. The East is pretty obvious. Atlanta is clearly the forerunner. If Atlanta doesn't make the Final Four teams in the NBA this year, something just went horribly, horribly wrong. But either way it goes, that team is just too busted. Offensively, defensively, extremely well built. 5 live guys on the floor. Atlanta's amazing. So who's going to be the second team? Of course, everybody's going to be like, you're going to go with Cleveland. Yeah, I'm going to go with Cleveland. I mean, the real statistics show that, yes, Atlanta is having a breakout year, but the facts are the last 4 years in a row, LeBron has been to the playoffs. LeBron has been to the East Coast Finals. Matter of fact, LeBron has been to the NBA Finals the last 4 years in a row. The last 4 years in a row, LeBron has won the East Coast Finals. So to think that LeBron, powered with an elite Kyrie Irving, powered with a hungry Kevin Love, is not going to make the Final Four is just, he's going to make the Final Four. I mean, I'd like to say that, you know, I wouldn't like to say the Bulls are going to get there because, number one, I haven't been going for the Bulls all year, even though I think they're a very well-built team. But two, they're injury-prone. And three, Tom Thibodeau be messing up. Or he messes up too often. So, no, the Bulls will be my second guess. And the Raptors in Washington, they fell off a long time ago. So, you know, the Raptors came out like beasts, but, you know, DeMar DeRozan got injured, and, you know, it just wasn't like the same team after that. You know, but then again, anything can happen in the playoffs. But in the East, I'm calling Atlanta versus Cleveland. Okay, so that brings us to the West. And, of course, my first team that we're going to say is Golden State. Extremely well built. Honestly, built better than Steve Kerr uses them, I believe. I mean, I still believe to this day he's underplaying Maurice Spikes and David Lee. But at the same time, I kind of understand where Steve Kerr is going. He's like, wow, I'm a first-year coach. 2, I have the best record in the league. Don't mess with it if it's not broken. I mean, when Steve Kerr came in, David Lee was hurt, so he had to find some backup guys and Harrison Barnes and that other guy he runs or whatever. And so all of a sudden, he's just got this streaking team that virtually barely ever loses. He brings Maurice Spikes in off the bench, and somehow Maurice Spikes, with reduced minutes, will still end up getting like 20 points in a game. So I guess I can understand Kerr's logic of, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, let's just look at the future effects of what's going to happen with Golden State. I mean, and granted, it is in the future. It is after this season. But number one, if I was David Lee, I would be highly upset right now. You go from being a starter player getting over 30 minutes a game to being a bench warmer, barely getting 15? Oh, no. If I'm David Lee, I want to trade because David Lee can't afford to have another year like this year where he's getting underplayed. His contract, his salary can't afford that. I'm asking for a trade if I'm David Lee. It's quite clear Steve Kerr's coming back next year. After this season, I don't see how Golden State could not bring back Steve Kerr. So that means David Lee's career in Golden State is done. So if I'm David Lee, I want to trade. While I still, while people still remember me as being an 18-point, 10-assist rebounder. If I'm David Lee, I want out. Two, if I'm Maurice Spikes, I want out. Why? Because anybody who's been paying attention to Golden State recognizes that a lot of Golden State's wins have come by the power of Maurice Spikes. Yeah. Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, absolutely. Harrison Barnes doing his job, absolutely. But you're out of your mind if you think Andrew Bogut is the better center on that team. He's not. He is not. Maurice Spikes is a bludgeoning, burgeoning, blooming, whatever you want to call it. He's a star, okay? When that guy gets time, he delivers. And honestly, why be a backup bench warmer for Golden State when you could be anybody starting center in the league? He could be power forward or starting center for any team in the league virtually. Unless there's already unless Anthony Davis is there, then they'll just play the other guy. Bottom line, he's a starter on any team in the league. So, nah, if I'm Maurice Spikes, I take the highest bidder. Somebody should come Maurice Spikes' way with $15 million. But of course, any owner's probably going to try and underplay it and say, hey, Spikes, I'll give you like $10 million. See if he jumps at that or whatever. Okay? But if you stay with Golden State, especially if you stay another year like this, the best you might ever get offered is like 7 or 8. You need to get out of Dodge too. And that's why I'm saying Golden State might have all the potential in the world. They're probably the only team with 5 guys that are just absolutely disgusting, but yet because of Steve Kerr, they won't get played. And that Steve Kerr honestly is the only weakness I see in Golden State. He is the only reason why this team does not win the championship. Because, I'm sorry, but Golden State is absolutely busted. LeBron's legacy, whatever. Golden State is broken this year. They are just unfair. All right, anyway. So the final question becomes, what team in the West is going to go against Golden State? Now, we can start off, let's make this question easier, because, you're like Memphis, but Memphis has kind of been showing some weakness recently. Granted, Gasol and Zach Randolph play better in the playoffs, but the first team I can say who's not going to make it is OKC. Okay, this team is like, it's almost starting to look like you're cursed, okay? Okay, Durant was already out. That was terrible. Whoa, wait, you underplayed Reggie Jackson, and oh yes, I'm blaming this on the coach. You finally did it, Scotty Brooks. Number 1, Durant was out. That's terrible. Number 2, you underplayed Reggie Jackson to the point where Reggie Jackson actually wanted a trade. And now what is Reggie Jackson? He's actually making the Pistons a viable threat? Yeah. Gee, I mean, you really would have thought this guy would have learned from the Harden deal? Back when you were playing Harden off the bench? No. So you repeated the exact same mistake with Reggie Jackson and got the exact same effect. Wow. Oh, and then, if that wasn't bad enough, they lost Serge Ibaka. First of all, if Westbrook somehow finds a way to get OKC into the playoffs without Serge Ibaka and Durant, Westbrook deserves the MVP for that one. Absolutely. Now, is OKC going to win? Absolutely not. Will OKC even make it out of the first round without Durant? Absolutely not. Okay. With that being said, what team will do it? I guess at this point I've got to let go of my Clippers bias. By the way, sign Nate Robinson for the rest of the deal. He's the best backup point guard you're gonna get. I mean, seriously, for a guy doing reduced minutes, if you doubled his minutes, he'd probably have better stats than a lot of starting point guards in the league. Sign Nate Robinson, Clippers. But honestly, the Clippers are a stacked team, absolutely. But I think I could say that they're misplayed. But then again, I think it's just their defense. I just don't. Again, I've already gone on this. I don't even want to talk about it. Blah blah blah. Play Blake Griffin as a small forward if you want to go deep into the playoffs. But anyway, so the Mavericks, the Spurs, and I hate to sleep on the Spurs. The Spurs look like they're doing something, but Popovich has been kind of funny all year, and I don't know why he's so obsessed with making Danny Green a starter. Guy's good, 24 minutes, absolutely, but starting minutes? Come on. So, okay. Let's see here. There's Portland. And Portland is nice. Portland is nice. But I still just think my kids are missing that third wheel. I think, honestly, if Portland had a third star, they would destroy all who stand in their way. Because LaMarcus Aldridge and Damian Lillard are busted. But, again, those guys always surprise me. I discounted them against the Rockets last year. That was a mistake. So we'll see how far they go. So in the end, which team goes against Golden State? Memphis, Spurs, Portland. Memphis, Spurs, Portland. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Catch a tiger by his toe. I don't know. You finish it. I guess Memphis. That's my time. That's my topics. Oh, yeah. Calls for tonight, right? Okay, since I've gone long on this video anyway. Here, let's see here. Cleveland over Brooklyn, whatever. Detroit versus Philly. I call Detroit. Portland versus Miami, Portland. Toronto versus Minnesota, Toronto. Chicago versus Indiana, Chicago. Spurs versus Milwaukee, the Spurs. OKC versus Boston, OKC. Dallas versus Orlando, Dallas. Clippers versus Sacramento, Clippers. Now, finally, the game. Oh, wait. And let's call Washington over Utah. Now, the one game that matters tonight that we have been waiting all season to see, and I don't know if it happened earlier in the season. I don't know if I missed it, but Atlanta is playing Golden State. Why does it have to be in the West Coast and start at 9:30, man? My time, that is. I mean, good grief. Who wants to be up watching a basketball game at 12 o'clock at night? Because they're going to be 2 hours and 30 minutes, right? With all the referees. Oh, gosh. It's a work night, man. It's Wednesday night. But this is like one of the best games of the season. Oh, what do I suffer for basketball, I tell you. So Atlanta versus Golden State. What do I call right now? Atlanta. Why? Because for the reasons I've already said. David Lee is angry. Maurice Spites, he's probably upset with his reduced playtime. And if you think you can go in and beat Atlanta without being 100%, Golden State's going to need every single solitary gift they can to beat Atlanta. So, Atlanta, it'll be a good lesson for Kerr. Maybe he'll realize that his beautiful record doesn't mean a hill of beans if he loses it all. That's my time, that's my topics.